Hi there, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Thursday, September the 26th. Well, I feel a little bit like 1973. Sam Ervin isn't in charge, but Adam Schiff is, and there's a hearing today at which there's questioning of the National Intelligence Director over communications of a whistleblower complaint about Donald Trump's activities in the Ukraine. Fascinating stuff. The complaint itself was released today. This is on top of an account of a telephone call that Trump made with a foreign leader. It's all terrible stuff if you believe that the President of the United States should not be offering help to a foreign country in return for dirt on his political opponent. A lot of Republicans don't feel that way. There's a lot more that's come out from this. We found that the Department of Justice is involved. We found that the White House has tried to hide documents related to their political activities. We found out that today Donald Trump, in a private meeting with UN staff, made something that sounded to many people there like a veiled threat that we ought to be executing people who are releasing information that led to this whistleblower's complaint. If this is not at least subject to the need for further investigation and a potential impeachment hearing, I don't know what is. At least two Republican congressmen and the Republican governor of Vermont have been heard to say this certainly bears some more attention, at least. Some shred of integrity exists somewhere in some far reaches of the Republican Party. Not, I'm sorry to say, in the Republican delegation from Arkansas. They continue to say that this is just a partisan witch hunt, that there's no there, that there's no quid pro quo. The former Solicitor General of the United States says that you don't have to have a specific quid pro quo when you talk about money and then you talk about needs for political favors. That's subtle enough even for the Soprano family. Well, Tom Cotton this morning, his focus of his tweet or attack on this was that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, has a paternity suit pending against him in Arkansas. That's how low they've sunk. Well, on to other matters. There are some other news today. Last night, the U.S. House passed a historic piece of legislation. It covers banks, allows them to do business with medical marijuana concerns and legal marijuana concerns in states that have legal marijuana. Hadn't passed the Senate yet. This is said to be the first major piece of marijuana reform legislation passed by either house of Congress. You know, it's hard for people to do their banking at medical dispensaries and growth facilities because of a fear of federal prosecution. Fridge Hill and Steve Wambach of Arkansas both voted for this bill. Bruce Westerman voted against it, and Rick Crawford did not vote. Well, the grassroots protest continues against the state's terrible plan to segregate the Little Rock School District into haves and have-nots, whites and black schools, favor the white part of town with some control over their schools, not give the same to the black part of town. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, which is in the tank with Asa Hutchinson because of the publisher's backing of this plan and the dissolution of the Little Rock School District, had a story, an apologia really, for one of the proponents of this measure today. The real news was buried down near the bottom of the story. State Education Commissioner Johnny Key admits that the idea the state board has to boot the teachers union and then have a personnel policy committee that's allowed by law, constituted an election overseen by an outside party is probably illegal. The teachers have to run this election under the law. Of course, the State Board of Education has ignored the law before, including in allowing segregative school transfers despite federal courts orders that say otherwise. They've been overturned before. They'll likely be overturned again, but that's the way it goes. Little Rock School District doesn't have self-determination and won't as long as Asa Hutchinson is in charge, and he certainly is for now. The State Correction Department yesterday issued an interesting news release. Wendy Kelly, the director, said that they backed some federal legislation that would allow jamming of cell phones inside prisons, state and federal prisons. They have a real problem with cell phones. They flow into the prison in high numbers, and then they're used for drug transactions, to direct criminal activity back home, and for a variety of other things. Kelly says that they think this year the prisons will seize 4,500 contraband cell phones. Kind of an amazing figure, and that gets in there somehow. I think it overlooks one point, that this isn't all about cell phones and prisoners. Some people on staff undoubtedly are participating in some of these activities. And here's a Civil War tale for you of the modern day. There's a statue of a Confederate soldier on the square in Bentonville, which was Union country back in the day. But there's a lot of controversy over this statue of a Confederate soldier put in as part of the Confederacy glorification campaign, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, back in the early 20th century. Well, a lot of people would like to see it removed. A lot of people want to see it there, being neo-Confederates these days. Well, sometime over the weekend, somebody snuck into the square and disarmed the statue, knocked off most of his musket, leaving only the barrel. The police are hot on the trail, they think. Well, one word for you today and one word only: impeach, but also resist if that doesn't happen. I'm Max Brantley, and I'll be back tomorrow.